Yeah, so it's great to be back with you, Michael. I love having the opportunity to talk about all things BIGGBY Nation.
Yeah. Yep. I've been enjoying these more than I thought I would.
Yeah,
No, they're
for
cool.
sure.
It's cool. I enjoy doing them.
I used to love what do we call them? Discovery days, right?
Yeah.
Because we could kind of go on a rant and have a discussion about things, whether it was steamed or perk or position priority. But I always felt rejuvenated every time we did that. And I don't know if you remember, but we had a pretty big room. We had a
Yeah.
stage built, and we used to rock that stage, as they say.
Yes, we did.
But one of my favorites was always listening to you talk about perk and position priority. And um, you know, of course, people ask us, "Oh, well, what are our competitive advantages all the time?" And to me, this is one of them. This
Yeah.
is one of the major competitive advantages. And you know what? How much has it changed over the last 30 years? Zero.
Zero.
Zero. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with Steam. Same thing with the mission statement. When you get it right, you don't need to change it. Don't need to modify it. So, but I was wondering if you would kick us off on perk and position priority.
Sure. I love perk and position priorities because when we are in front of a group and we ask the question, what's the number one struggle for a business owner or some version of that question, invariably it comes back people, something in relation to people. And what we've done with perk and position priorities, and we'll get into it, some detail about it, but what we've done with those two tools is that they are tools designed to tackle that problem. The concept, if you remember, and I remember you and I talking about this years ago, it was how do we, what do we need to put in place in order for the franchise owner to be able to leave their store and be comfortable with the fact that the store will be run as well? And I might even argue better than when the franchise owner is present.
That's right.
And because our system, I mean, most people come into our system with the dream of opening multiple units. And frankly, how you build wealth in this business is through multiple units. And so how can we make and design our world and give them really powerful tools that allow them to focus on development and expanding the business, not being in the store running the espresso bar?
Totally. Right.
So that was the premise behind
Yeah.
both of these. And,
Yeah.
I don't know that we had that fully articulated when we designed them. I think it was more of a gut feel of like, oh boy, we need something like this.
Yeah.
And so, there's really two very distinct uh, tools, systems that are built to tackle two very different challenges in relation to people. The first one is PERC.
Yeah.
And PERC was designed to set the attitudinal expectation in the store. When a barista shows up to work, what do we want from them from an attitudinal perspective, right? Like
Yeah.
and that's a very difficult thing to articulate in a one-off conversation.
Yeah.
And so PERC was designed to give the franchise owner, but the thing about that is that it isn't exactly for the franchise owner, because if the franchise owner's in the store operating the store with an apron on behind the counter, I there the expectation is, and I certainly believe that a lot of this stuff in relation to perk and position priorities would just happen because they're there managing the minute to minute.
Exactly right.
if but what this is about is they need to hire a manager to be in the store to run the store while they're off developing a second property or whatever they're doing to expand their business. And so these tools are really for that manager to have in their tool belt in order to manage their staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
um
can I
yeah, go
interrupt
ahead.
for a
Yeah,
second?
yeah, of course.
And then you'll you'll
And then
you'll
I can
pick
go, I can
right
keep
up.
ranting on this one. I can go for
And I and I
hours.
and I and I want you to. right? Because it's amazingly cogent. I just want to say out loud how really simple both of these ideas are, perk and position priority. And and sometimes I struggle with uh people are like, well, it can't possibly be that simple, you know, but it is. And in actuality, I think most people overcomplicate things. And if you go to the simple, if you can keep it simple, both the communication and the idea, the opportunity for it to resonate with others gets much higher.
And performance excels.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was you. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I remember sitting in our conference room remember on, was it Capitol Avenue? Was that what it
Yeah.
was? And working on this and
Yeah.
really, really debating what were the most important things,
Yeah.
and that simplicity is, when a franchise owner calls, and I've experienced this, I'm sure you have too, where they call, they're 18 months into their business, 12
Yeah.
months into their business, it's not, maybe not performing how they want, and you start talking about perk and position priorities.
Yeah.
And I've had the experience where a franchise owner's like, I'm just sick and tired of hearing about perk and position priorities.
Yeah.
One, my heart sings at that moment, right?
Yeah.
um and then it's like, well, if I had a different answer for you today, 18 months into your business, you should come punch me in the nose, because I should have given you that information 18 months ago,
That's right.
right? This is the answer.
Yeah.
And I would say that perk and position priorities, if you boil it down and you go to a successful franchise owner and they say, just follow the system,
Yeah.
I think the system they're talking about, or one of the primary systems they're talking about, is these two: perk and position priorities,
For
right?
sure.
Just execute them.
Yeah. And and really answers the operational mission statement, which is to create one new BIGGBY Coffee fanatic per day per store who will actively promote us to others, right?
Yeah.
It feeds right into that. Not to mention the interconnectivity with Steam. The S is Steam. The first S is simplicity through systems, right? Well, that's what
Right.
we're talking about right here.
Right. Yep.
But this is the
Simplicity.
granddaddy of all systems inside BIGGBY.
I think so. From an operational standpoint, I believe it is. And you've always said, until you're blue in the face, don't spend a dime on marketing until you're confident that when you drive a new customer into the store, you're going to drive them out having had the experience where they're going to come back more often,
Yeah.
bring somebody else with them, or there was a third, I'm blanking.
Tell
Sorry.
somebody else.
Tell somebody else about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what this is. This gives you that functionality where the store's operating at a high level, so that when you do spend advertising and marketing dollars, they're actually powerful, impactful, and they drive the business forward.
Yeah. Perk and position priority is how you close the deal.
Yeah.
That's how you close the deal on your marketing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
All
just to
right.
get into it for a minute,
Yeah.
let's start with position priorities.
Hmm.
Because, you know, I've always stated that to me, this is the fundamental of operating a successful coffee shop. And it came from your experience in running high volume kitchens. So the story on that, and I mean, I'm going to tell it, but I want you to add add the color. You ran extraordinarily high volume breakfast restaurants where you were
Yeah.
serving eggs and pancakes, right?
Yeah.
And you were doing massive volumes, between 7 a.m. and noon, and it was like, to do that amount of volume at $3 a plate back in the day, you had to be putting a plate out of that kitchen every zero point 0.8 seconds, right? It had to be flying out of there.
That's
So
right.
there's a line cook uh, process, I guess. Can you talk about that? And then you converted that to BIGGBY, and then I'll dive into sort of how we design that for the espresso bar.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was 10 years in the breakfast business. And like you say, I mean, we were selling breakfasts for $1.99, two
Right.
eggs, bacon, sausage, hash browns, and toast, and doing $1.6 million a year. I mean,
Yeah, doing
uh,
$8,000 to $10,000 before noon.
And you know, if you think one of our coffee recipes is complicated, think about all the different variables on eggs, bacon, sausage, hash browns, pancakes, toast, three kinds of toast, all the
Skillets,
permutations of that.
omelets.
Hmm.
Yep.
And you know, having to serve a six top up simultaneously, right? And it was, you know, working in that kind of condition kitchen. It was like being a conductor if you were the head cook. And you know, I started off uh you know, at the bottom of the totem pole there, but I ended up being head cook in the end. But you know, there was a station for eggs, there was a station for pancakes, there was a station for toast, there was a station for hash browns, there was a station for meats. And those stations had to work in unison to bring, you know, one plate or four plates together simultaneously. You know this about breakfast. I mean, that doesn't sit under a heat lamp for very long looking good. You know, like you got to get that product up and out right away. And I mean, we used to just hammer this stuff out, hammer it out.
Yeah.
And so that whole division of labor was brought to BIGGBY, where we just divided it into its parts,
Yep.
which is, you know, we needed somebody to take the order and collect the cash. We needed somebody to set up the drink and shoot the shots, and we needed somebody to complete the drink and talk to the customer. And those were the three parts. And it couldn't possibly be more simple than that. Now, that was different than all the other cafes we were seeing at that moment in time, which was, you know, you'd walk into a coffee shop, a barista would come up, take your order, wander around aimlessly a little bit, kind of put the whole thing together themselves and then give it to you. And then, you know, maybe if another customer came in, another barista would come in and do the same thing, right? There was no orderliness to it, and there was no consistency to it, and there was no speed to it, and there was no sense of urgency. So it was a foreign concept when it was launched. I think many have copied it since then, but you know, just to take it right down the line in the order that it needs to, proved to be very effective.
Yeah. And then it was designed where there were three positions and then three responsibilities per position.
Correct.
And, you know, I remember the importance of that first responsibility of the cashier was to greet the customer within 3 paces of the door. And
Amazing.
and that was every minute of every day you were open.
That's
And
right.
it didn't matter if you walked in 7 minutes before close or you walked in 2 minutes before open and the door was unlocked, you were greeted.
Right.
And so that, you know, that was, and I've actually heard that repeated recently, you know, and it's like that is such a fundamental. And then we had there's a whole system built around how to drive the customer through the transaction. So that's priority number two,
Yeah.
right? Drive and we as the cashier, we take control of that conversation. We
Correct.
don't sit and wait for the customer to tell us what they want to order. We have
Yeah.
we have a series of questions built that the cashier's using in order to drive through. And because in the coffee business, you walk in and you look at one thing, and that is how many people are in line at the cash register. You
Hmm.
never look at how many people are in at the end of the line. And in this, we're not incorporating the drive-through conversation. That's a
It's
little
still
that's
true
a,
in the drive-through though. I
yeah,
mean, like if that drive-through is really tailed, you're out of
you're
there. You're
out.
like,
Yeah.
I'm not waiting
Doesn't
for
matter
this.
if there's 7 cars pulled over in the
Yeah.
parking lot waiting for their
Yeah.
drinks, right?
Yeah.
So that was the B level responsibility. The A level, most important thing was greet the customer within 3 paces of the door,
Yeah.
let them know we're ready for them, right?
Yeah.
And then the second was to drive them through the transaction by asking a series of questions and then sending them on their way to go wait for their drink. And then the third was just to maintain the tidiness of the area, right?
Of
Make
course.
sure the food is stocked, the area is wiped down, and so on. So that was the cashier. Now the shop puller,
Can I
yeah,
just
go ahead.
point out though,
Yeah,
because we're
yeah,
going to get to this,
yeah,
but it satisfies two things that are nesting in PERC, right? Recognize the consumer as an individual, respect their time and move them as quickly as possible. Like it completely satisfies
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two work together. There's no
Yep.
doubt about it, right? Getting into shot puller, it is, I mean, the primary responsibility. And when you're busy, you stand at the espresso machine and you
Mm.
pull shots and set up drinks. That's
Yep.
what you do, right?
Yep.
And then the B level responsibility is brew coffee. And then the C level responsibility, if those two are satisfied, is to bust tables and clean up the condiment bar, wipe down the
Yep.
condiment bar. So that, that's very focused. Now, if you're so busy that you can't get out to wipe down the condiment bar or bust tables, that's okay, right? That means that there's probably an opportunity for the manager to bring on a fourth person for an hour here and there to get everything caught up, right?
Right.
And so those are the responsibilities of the shot puller.
Now,
Yeah,
if I may, sorry, I don't want to
yeah,
ruin your rhythm, but in today's world, because there's so much food preparation, there's a
yeah,
lot going on there too. So
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of drive-throughs, so not so much wiping down counters for the consumer and stuff like that, but you might be running a lot of
yeah,
bagels,
yeah.
kind of.
And again, that's also when there may need to be a fourth person put on, right?
Correct.
In
Yeah,
a given moment in time, or overlapping shifts, so you have four people for some moment, that kind of thing. And I mean, at this point, the original position priorities, in many ways, I mean, they've been altered for
yeah,
drive-through and with the
yeah,
increased food production, but the theory is still appropriate, right?
completely.
Yeah, and it's about uh, focus, and so then just to get into the last one, which is the milk steamer. Yeah,
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you one more time. Like, I got to go back to PERC again because you got a person shooting shots, like to get good at your job, you need frequency, right?
yeah,
You need to do stuff over and over and over again. Malcolm Gladwell says 10,000 hours, you'll be an expert. But in terms of this idea of consistently providing a high
and
quality
you are
product.
letting the whole perk presentation out of the bag
No,
here.
no, 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 no.
We'll
I'm
get there.
I'm I'm tying the two together, but I'm just saying,
Yeah, I mean, we'll get there.
okay, all right.
There's definitely a moment to tie the two together,
Okay,
and
all right, all right.
I look forward to that moment.
All right, so
But you're crushing the position priorities presentation. You're
okay.
just crushing it. I mean, in a bad way, not crushing it in
I'm
a good
sorry,
way. Yeah.
I just get excited about this stuff.
So let me just finish this, and then
No.
we're gonna move on
All
into
right.
perk, and then we're gonna tile it. We're gonna tile
Yeah.
it together. So there's the three levels of responsibility of the milk steamer, and that is you got to finish drinks, right? You got to steam milk, you got to finish the drink, put the whipped cream, whatever it is, serve the drink to the customer. That's the A level responsibility. The B level is to engage the customer in a conversation. And there are tools that we've created inside of that system to encourage that, right? I mean, the simplest form is the trivia question, right? Like it's like just it's up there and it does drive some engagement. We have different tools and systems, topic of the day, these kinds of things, right? And then the C level priority of the milk steamer is to make sure that the espresso bar is stocked
Yeah.
and ready so you don't run out of product you need to make drinks. Boom.
Yeah.
Now,
Boom.
here's the deal. Everything that needs to be managed in the store minute to minute is handled.
Yeah.
And if there's something that occurs in the store that isn't handled within that system, we call that an aberration. And aberrations are meant to be and are supposed to be handled by leadership in management, right? And so the point here is that when you show up to work, you put that apron on, you punch in, you get assigned to a role. You know exactly what your A level most important priority is, your B level, and your C level. Done. You don't have to worry about anything else. If you're on the steam wand, you don't have to worry about wiping down the condiment bar. You don't got to worry about, making sure that the muffins are stocked, right?
Yeah.
That you are focused on your three things. Now,
Yeah.
what does that accomplish? It accomplishes one of the more difficult components to managing people, which is prioritization. That's it. Prioritization. So when you show up what the most important thing is you're supposed to be working on. Done. Now, what we got into was, okay, cool. Like that, we created that first. But then there became this conversation of you can still show up to work, execute position priorities, and still not be successful in your role.
Yep.
And the whole point here is to give the barista the systems that allow them to be successful in their role. Because if they're successful, the store is successful, right? So
100%.
that led into, okay, what do we expect from an attitudinal perspective? Like, how do we want people acting when they show up? And that's how we got into PERC. And
Yeah. Okay.
right.
Here we go.
Okay,
I
here we go. Here we
no,
go.
no. I mean, sorry.
Go,
But
no, go.
like I love this stuff,
Yeah.
and I love perk and position priority. Um, it's so simple. It's so focused. It's easy to understand. It's easy to do.
Yeah. 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 And what we communicate to a barista is if you do these two systems, if you execute position priorities and perk, you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be successful in your job because you will be. And that's the role of management. Management needs, so how many people walk into their first day of a new job and they sit there and no one tells them what they've got to do to be successful in their role. It's not defined, right? And owners of businesses, they talk about trying to find the right employee,
Yeah.
right? You don't go
Yeah.
find a superstar that's going
Yeah.
to replace you and run
Yeah.
the business. That's not how the world works.
No, for
What
sure.
you do is you hire people and you build an environment for them to excel within. And
Mhm.
that's what these two systems do, is create that environment for people to excel within. So some detail, we'll go through PERC. I mean, some detail on PERC, key in PERC, perception by customers that we respect their time and will move them as quickly as possible. What that screams is have a sense of urgency when you're behind the counter. And it's my opinion that you can go into a retail environment, you can go into a store, and you might wait from an aggregate perspective a longer period of time than you would in a competitor that's not as busy, but you don't mind waiting if you feel like the staff is busting it through, working as hard as they can. They've got a sense of urgency. There's a ton of energy. It's actually can be invigorating, even though you might
Oh,
have waited 2 minutes longer.
yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like if you can look behind the counter and see people are cranking nose to the grindstone, you're like, I think I like watching this. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
it's a little bit of a phenom.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the point of P, right? And then E in perk is the rule that breaks all the rules, and that is every customer leaves the store in a better mood than when they arrived.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
You have to, as a barista, no matter what happens, you have to provide the customer that experience where they leave in a better mood than when they came in. And the perfect drink and a polite smile isn't enough, because when you walk in, your expectation is they're going to make the drink you ordered perfectly and they're going to be polite. They're not going to be surly. So if you do those two things, you've done nothing to exceed their expectation and have them walk out of the store in a better mood than when they
Yeah.
came in. So
Yeah.
I love E. It's to me, it's like there's always in a great system, there's always got to be the rule that allows you to break all the
All
rules.
the rules.
Yeah.
It's such an intangible though, Mike. This idea that you're going to send somebody out in a better mood than when you arrived. I mean, like how could you possibly measure it and so on and so forth, right? But I will say, from my days of working behind the counter,
Oh yeah.
I
Yep.
knew, when people were walking out in a better mood than when they arrived. And I swear to whatever God
Goodness.
anybody believes in,
I swear to goodness.
yeah, I swear to goodness that there were people coming to the shop, not even for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
but to get their people juice.
Yep.
They needed their people juice.
They walk out with a skip in their step.
Yeah.
They're fired up. You know, I don't know what those guys are drinking back there, but whew, the greatest compliment I ever would receive working in a store was, "Wow, Mike, you've been hitting the product a little hard today,"
Yeah,
because that meant they felt the energy, right?
correct.
They felt that sort of caffeinated craziness that, and that was, I love that they
Yeah.
felt that, and they felt it enough to even comment on it.
Yeah, right. Energy, intensity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So our PERC is recognize each customer as an individual. That one, we just have the most beautiful opportunity as a business because we have a high frequency rate. And so you can engage that customer, you can get to know them. Every time they're in, you can ask them another question about their life or what's going on for them. And at the end of the day, you can get to know a whole heck of a lot about somebody.
That's right.
If you have, 100 40-second conversations with somebody over a year,
Yeah.
all of a sudden at the end of that year, you know a lot about them,
You
right?
know, maybe even more than you're comfortable with.
Yeah, at
You
times.
know?
I remember some of those. I'll tell the story. I remember a guy coming in on the weekend, and he was a
Yeah.
regular during the week, and he always came in with a woman, and they
Yeah.
were affectionate.
Yeah.
And then he came in on a Saturday, and he walked up to the counter and he introduced me to his wife, and it wasn't that woman. And I was like, oh,
Oh, yeah. It's a good thing you didn't say, "Where's your wife today?"
yeah. you know,
Yeah.
but anyway, and I'll tell you, for me anyway, when I worked in the stores, having that kind of a relationship with the customer,
Yeah.
I mean, that made the time valuable. That
It
was
did.
like, and I love that about the business. And if we don't engage in that way, we're missing a real
Yeah.
opportunity to build community, a real opportunity to have influence and to get to know people. And you remember Luann Simon came into the store every day, remember?
I mean, so many, her and so many like them. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
half of state government came
Yeah.
in
Oh gosh. Yeah.
into the
Downtown.
store,
Yeah.
lobbyists and
Well,
all
I
that kind of
remember,
stuff.
and then I didn't know who she was. She was
Yeah.
nice, and I
Yeah.
liked her. We'd always
Yeah.
joke around. She had an incredibly dry sense of humor. She
Yeah.
was awesome. And then I opened this is going to date me, but I
Yeah.
opened the Lansing State Journal or get the Lansing State Journal, and the front page is a picture of
Yeah.
her taking over as president of the Michigan State University. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Holy cow.
I call it. She used to get an iced tea with an extra lemon. That's
Yeah.
how I
Right.
knew her, right? She'd get an
Yeah.
iced tea with an extra lemon every single day,
Yeah.
and that's the kind of I mean, I don't know today if I ran into her, she would remember me,
Yeah.
but like, I mean, back
No,
when,
I think she would. I
right?
think she. Yeah.
Well, when I told her that if I told her that her drink was an iced tea with an extra slice of lemon, I mean, she'd have to laugh at that, right? That I still
I,
remember.
Hey, before you go on to the next one, that there's because like sometimes it feels like we're talking about this when a store is already at volume, like things that
Right.
are going on and so on. But um, this idea that for the consumer that you would respect their time and move them as quickly as possible might seem in conflict with this idea that you're going to treat a customer as an individual. But I remember, even the days when we were getting one customer at a time, we would pound that puppy out
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
still with a sense of urgency. But what that really opened up was an opportunity to have a conversation
Yeah.
as we were handing them the drink and so on and so forth. And I mean, I had so many amazing end of the counter conversations
Oh,
with people.
yeah. Wouldn't you love to be able to go back and replay those? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Uh, and how I've always articulated that is we want the customer to be able to make the decision on how long they want to hang out. I mean, if they
Oh,
want to get in and get out, we're doing that, right? Like
yeah.
we'll get that drink to you in a split second. And if you got to go, you got to go. Hey, you
Yeah.
want to hang out for 10 minutes and talk about whatever?
Yeah.
Perfect. We're
Yeah.
here. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So yeah, and sometimes I think in it sounds crazy, but in slower stores, I think speed of service goes down
Yeah.
because there isn't that sense. Well, if you got a line at the door, I mean, you're pounding it, right? And
Yeah.
so there's this level of urgency, but I think it's even, I don't want to say more critical, but it's as critical in a slow store to get that drink done. We always used to race the customer to the end of the
Yeah.
counter. Could
Yeah.
we get the drink done by the
Yeah.
time they walk down to the end of the
Yeah.
counter? Could we do that? Right.
Yeah.
And how many times would a customer be surprised at how
Yeah.
quickly it came out? And they would
A
comment,
custom order.
yeah. And you're like, boom, baby.
Yeah.
Like when they say, holy
Yeah.
smokes, that was
Yeah.
quick. Did you have that? Were you starting that before I even walked in the door? And a lot of times we would. You take the
Yeah.
risk, they've ordered the same drink for 2.5 months in a row. It's like, yeah, I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to start
Yeah.
making it as soon as I see them pull into the parking lot. And
Yeah.
then they order, they pay, and it's waiting for them.
No, for sure. Yeah, we get burned on that once or twice, on what I call the shoulder seasons, when people are transitioning from their winter drink to their
Experimenting. Yeah,
summer
yeah,
drink or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But hey, it was worth it.
yeah. Yeah. And then one last story. It's one of the more meaningful stories of my professional career. Was there was a dentist by the name of Bob May, and he used to come in every day. I didn't know he was a dentist. And he was a big hockey fan. Oh my God. We'd sit and
Yeah.
talk hockey for
Yeah.
for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And then one day I was suffering. I had a really bad tooth. I didn't have any money to fix it, and so I was and he asked me about it. He's like, "What's going on?" And I said, I got this tooth, man. It's really bad. I got an exposed nerve or something, And he said, "Why don't you stop by my office this afternoon?" I'm like, "Okay." He says he's a dentist. So I
Yeah.
go to his office after work and I sit down and I'm like, "Bob, I don't have two nickels to rub together, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
could I couldn't pay you $50 if I had to,
Yeah.
right?" He's like, "No, no, 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 no." He fixes my tooth, pats me in the back, and I mean, come on. Like
Amazing.
that is just to me, that story just still gets me
No, for sure.
gets me right there.
Yeah.
The final one, and then we can do some summary stuff around this, but the final one is C and PERC consistently produce a high quality beverage. And all that tells the barista is follow the procedures. Don't invent a new way to steam milk. Don't, follow the procedure on steaming milk. Don't invent a new way to discount a coupon or not discount a coupon or, follow the procedures. And you're going to be, if you do these four things in PERC and execute position priorities, you're golden. You will be a successful employee. And, and that's it. And, the quick summary is we're tackling with what we consider to be our two most powerful operational systems are tackling the biggest challenge that owners face, and that's people. We're prioritizing their time and we're setting the expectation attitudinally. And if you do those two things and you make those your mantra, your store will operate as well when you're not there as it is when you're there.
Amen. Amen. And it will actually make your staff feel more comfortable about working there.
Yeah.
There's an orderliness to it that keeps them around. I mean, there's so many jobs you go to, and there's like all this OJT, and nobody knows what the hell's going on, and maybe you're going to sink or swim at that particular job. But here we give you all the tools you need, so you don't have to sink. You're going to swim. You
Right.
know.
Well, and if I had the opportunity to talk to a brand new franchise owner and they said, give me one piece of advice on what I should do in my first year,
Yeah.
I would say nail PERC and position priorities.
Totally.
Nail them down in your culture. Make those two things the things you're obsessing over.
Yeah.
Everything is covered. Everything is covered. If you're not pulling a shot properly, right? Maybe you're not, following the timing procedures on the
Yeah.
espresso machine. That just falls into C a PERC.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be timing shots in this interval. And if you're not doing that as a barista, so
Yeah.
make everything in the store for the barista relate to perk and position priorities and just hammer them as if it's the lifeblood of the store, because it is. And because, as you've always articulated, if you don't provide, and these systems provide the customer that experience that
Yeah,
you always talk about, right? Don't spend a dime on marketing until you know that that customer is going to walk out of the store, promote us to others, come back more often, or bring somebody back with them.
that's
Boom.
right. Or you'd just be wasting your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always uh I love talking about this because like all these principles you could apply to any business, right? I mean, like you could transport this. There's so little about the product in here, and there's everything about people in here. There's
Yeah.
everything about management in here. There's
Leadership.
everything about
Yeah.
leadership in here, and uh, it's not about blueberry muffins versus strawberry muffins. It's not about light whipped cream versus heavy whipped cream. It's not about those things. It's about people and how you manage them.
Yeah. That's a wrap. I love it.
All right.